Oh, it feels like ages since we chatted. I do miss our chats.
You're saying a quick podcast. It's not going to be a quick one. You know that, don't you?
No, not this subject. Hell's teeth. Hell's teeth.
Right. I'm just trying to think more than this. So, hello, welcome to the ANF podcast holiday special. Ta-da! Right. Ready?
Right.
Hello and welcome to the ANF podcast holiday special with me, Scott Caston-Rennie, and him,
Al Coates.
It's like a Butlins kind of thing going on.
Oh, we went to Butlins. No, let's
not go there yet.
Went to...
Just keep your powder dry for a little while.
I think it was Pontins, just to be clear. Yes. Well, we sort of as a companion podcast to go with the Paul White, the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Lanyard guy. We thought we'd do a podcast, and I said to Scott, "Hey, Scott, we should talk about." And Scott, when I talked,
this is long overdue. This one, yeah, this is long overdue because this could be a long podcast. I've got too much to say on this subject.
And so this is a podcast about holidays.
Yeah.
Maybe can I have one news item before we go into holidays?
Yeah.
And we should maybe do a little welfare check. I've just come back from a holiday.
Yeah.
And
that's the reason we're recording the holiday special.
Yes, hence the reason. No, just people may or may not have noticed on social media. I've been I wasn't asked. I invited to host a report written by a group of people who are adoptive parents who had experienced disruption. It's called Adoption Crisis, the jarring reality of adoption. It's got 34 contributors, people just telling their stories, really. So there's no kind of arcing narrative around that. It is just people telling their stories. It's the start of a group of people who are just really keen to see system change. So I'll put the link for it in the doobly-doo, the show notes. And I encourage people to read it. It's quite a hard read, but I think it reinforces my thinking that we need to support families better. It is probably if we've got support, which is one end, it's, come to the Easter egg hunt once a year. Yeah. And at the other end, we've got disruption, and so it's part of that continuum. And I think it just reflects the needs of families. So I'll just put that there. It's a quite a sobering subject, but people read that. And we're going to get the individual who wrote it on in early May. We're going to do a live webcast, and we've going to get a few other guests who we're going to perhaps fill into that. A really interesting guest I'm speaking to next week in relation to a PhD about children's experience of violent aggressive behavior. So children themselves talking about it, and they've done a PhD on that, which is a really, really not often heard voice.
Yeah. Very rare. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was a serious notification, wasn't it? Ooh, very sensible.
And I think as you've mentioned something that you're doing, we should mention on Monday, 6 p.m. We'll be speaking to Jeff Noble, who is the CEO and founder of FASD Caregiver Success in Canada. But it's a worldwide, global kind of thing that he does. I'm going to his event in Ayr on Tuesday. You're not, because you weren't invited. So I'm going to that on Tuesday, and really just getting him on. Me and Tris were on his podcast last year, I think it was, and he's absolutely mental. So it'll be a good.
I remember that.
If nothing else. Yeah.
What I remember is you went on it and you came afterwards. You said, "We need to talk about the podcast."
We need to talk about how that's when we started trying to uplift.
We tried to lift our game.
It lasted about 2 episodes, and we just went there. He's absolutely. I mean, he's a cracking guy. He's cracked. He's absolutely but it'll be good fun. Hopefully, listening to him and seeing what that happens on Tuesday. But we're going to speak to him Monday, see what it is about, see why he's doing it in Scotland, all that sort of stuff. But obviously, it'll be alive, but we'll put it out it's only going to be a half-hour, 45-minute jobby, so we'll put it out afterwards as a little extra podcast for the week. But it should be excellent. Should be good fun.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
So Scott, you're a man of many holidays. Adoption's answer to. I'm trying to think. Judith Chalmers. Who else is a famous travel show?
Famous travel show. I don't know.
Can't think of any.
There's not many males that do it, is there?
No, there isn't.
No.
So we'll just call you Judith
Anyway,
for this episode.
yeah,
Looking unimpressed. I just thought that this is an issue. I can't believe we've not talked about it before.
I know, actually, I can't either. Especially, like you say, how many holidays I've bloody had over the time.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's maybe because I don't go on holidays, and I see them as a massive inconvenience in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could tell by about Saturday it was starting to become inconvenient.
Yeah, I've been
you only
to
went away
Portugal.
on Wednesday.
Well, actually, I flew on Wednesday morning at, I think it's 6:30 or half. It was a really early flight, which is perfect for us to get off, get there, which is great. And then I think it was 24 hours later, just over, and I texted you with a little I've had an idea. And you messaged me straight back going, yes, I've stopped the stopwatch now, 24 hours. I just really snarky comment. I just get so, they're just not me. But I was thinking.
No, they're not. But
no. So I was thinking that well, I've got lots of stories about holidays we've taken, but as a rule, we've not taken that many holidays. I have to say that I think that the impact of having children with complex needs and having lots of children is that meant that it just totally altered how we interacted with holidays. But prior to but I was thinking about this. I was walking the dog yesterday, and I was thinking, but interestingly, holidays, one of the most defining experiences for me as an adult was on holiday. And it was so when the eldest 3 children were little and we hadn't started fostering, it was just before we started to foster. And we went away and we took Queenie. And if anyone doesn't know, there's a disabled woman that lives with us, Queenie. And she was with Paula when I met Paula. So Queenie's lived with us now for 30 years. 30 years she's lived with Paula. That's amazing.
Wow.
And so 3 children, maybe you were 10, 6 and 5. Queenie in a wheelchair, and we took a package holiday. And it just was, I know it's got stretching just for, this isn't, so it was just totally right. And we said we need a disabled room for Queenie because Queenie's in a wheelchair. We need, all of this really complicated stuff. And we got there and just not one single bit of it had been arranged.
Oh, really?
And so my defining memory of it is so for example, they lost a wheelchair on the plane. And if you don't have a wheelchair and you need a wheelchair, it's quite problematic. And so
having met Queenie, she definitely needs a wheelchair. I mean, it's not that she can walk. She cannot walk, can she?
She can't stand.
She is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not that she could have done 24 hours with a walking stick, No.
So we were the last flight into, I can't remember where we went. We were the last flight in. So it was 2:00 in the morning and there's 3 little kids and Queenie. And we borrowed the airport hotel, the wheelchair, and we put her into the bus. And the rep said, well, we're going to give the wheelchair back now. And Paula went, right. And Paula literally had a cow and she held the bus to hostage and she said, this bus is not leaving the airport until we get a wheelchair. And the woman said, the poor rep was like 22, rabbit in the headlights. And she said, and Paula said, how's she going to get to the toilet? And she went, well, can your husband not carry it? And Paula had to be physically restrained from garroting the woman. And I went behind this. I just went into the hotel and it was all the airport and it was shut. And I thought, well, I'll just go through this door and see where and then I'll go through this door. And I found myself out onto the apron and found the chair just, literally I thought, sod this for a game of cards. I went out on like 3:00 in the morning at some Mediterranean hotel. And I found a wheelchair just standing randomly on concrete. Just thought, there's a wheelchair cabinet. And so the holiday was started, and then every one of us progressively it rained every day, and then every day, and then we all one by one got a 24-hour sickness bug, and we had to spend the deposit on and so it was an absolute disaster. And what it taught me was that holidays are not what they're cracked up to be. And so that was the last holiday we went. But the defining moment in my life was that you don't look forward to holidays. What you do is you enjoy something every day. So I went back to work on the Monday. I said, you can have your company car back. I don't want it. I want the cycle to work. And that's not a particularly interesting story, but that's anyway.
But
I don't know.
I think it's an interesting experience. And I think probably having someone who's disabled and requires that piece of equipment to even move like an inch is probably adds to the stress of it. I have to say that I've been on many holidays, as you know. Some have been packaged, some haven't been packaged, all that sort of stuff. I think the earliest thing that we discovered was if we don't go on a package holiday, we can manage it and control it all ourselves, so that it works for everybody. So if you go on a package holiday, like, well, these days we wouldn't do it, and for two reasons really. Number one, because we go to places where perhaps we go on a cruise as an example, because we enjoy cruising, so that's our thing. We enjoy going with a certain company. They don't do kind of packages, etc. So there's that reason, but there's also the other reason that we've had to kind of not postpone, not abandon plans, but we've had to change our plans quite quickly because of issues with traveling with children and young people.
You've just blown my mind. You have just totally blown my mind, and that makes so much sense.
Yeah, so that's how we manage them, but it's still not. It's still not a breeze.
Because with the package holiday, when we got to the hotel, they didn't have a disabled room for her.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Tris as well. Tris would be like, Tris would be like Paula. If that had happened to him, he would have been like Paula. Like literally, it wouldn't have been physical with the holiday rep, but would have said a choice few words and made sure that she understood that you weren't going anywhere until there was a wheelchair. And I would have sat there with my head in my hands going, oh my days, oh my days, oh my days. But I think it's one of those situations, isn't it? But I mean, when I think back to early days, I used to love going on holiday. And I think you're right. Now it feels more of a chore to go on holiday. And Tris was looking for something in a couple of weeks' time. I'm like, do you know what? Can't afford it. And it's not really that we can't afford it. It's just can't be bothered. I genuinely can't be bothered going away. And I even said to him, why don't you just go and, go and do your detox thing in Thailand, and, I'll stay here and run the ship. But
did you take the boys away from the start? Because you adopted your two boys 2011.
Yeah. 2007. Yeah. Well, I've got a story about that. Would you like to hear my story about that?
I tell you what, before you tell your story, we put a little post out before we sort of did this, and I'll reflect to you a few of the comments. I shall not name the people who commented. The first comment was, go on holiday. And I quote, don't do it. Now it's just right. And so I guess in the context, we're talking about children with additional needs, aren't we? Children with complex needs, children with hidden disabilities, which I think is probably the key thing. It's for children where all of the stuff's going on the inside, and that's sort of like spilled out, but there's not it's not wheelchairs. Another person sort of like, people were just telling stories of like children just unraveling in epic ways in really complicated situations.
Yeah.
Another one was people talking about, really, which is a bit what you were saying really, was about just really kind of containing holidays down to kind of the bare essence. And I was just kind of, and so it was really interesting to see that. And I didn't push any more for more comments and questions, but it was just, it just reflected the people going, wow, this is really messy and complicated. I mean, given finance as well. So Scott, your stories, because you were...
Well, just for a launch the story, I think containing is one of the key things here. So if you think about, I think Elaine Amy talks about this quite openly, birthdays. They don't really do birthdays in their home, do they? Because it's quite triggering for her young people. And I think that holidays can be quite triggering for young people as well. And I have many a time had experiences where, and Jacob is fine with me sharing this, but where Jacob especially really struggled within kind of 48 hours. This is when we started to see it 48 hours before the holiday, and it would just get progressively worse. And the night before, there would be a massive thing that would just trigger a huge meltdown. Now, I can look back now and know what it was. It was his he didn't understand it. He was going away to come back. He thought, in his head, his brain was telling him he was going away. So he was moving again. He was moving on again. He was, he'd had to pack his little suitcase for holiday. Didn't matter how much preparation we did with that. It still happened. So, and I think containing it and just making it part of everyday life is something that we do now. I don't tend to go, oh, come on, let's get packed, 2 weeks before and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like night before, right? If you packed your suitcase, and I mean, they're adults now, so they're fine. But even when they were kind of younger, we'd pack the day before so that it minimized the length of time that, there was a suitcase sitting there. We'd put all the suitcases together. We would name them, so everybody knew whose suitcase was what, and we would kind of try and pack together so you could see what we were packing, all that sort of stuff to try and kind of contain it, minimize the stuff that would happen and what have you. And, like I say, they're adults now, so it's a little bit different. And the issues are very different as they become adults. But my little story is this: that so the boys moved in with us on May the 31st, 2007, and I think probably by the 7th of June, perhaps, we requested their passports.
To which is a big deal.
Well, it is, yeah. But and our naivety, because we were. We did live quite far from friends and family, so we didn't really, I know that they say the first couple of weeks you're supposed to kind of lock yourselves in and, bond and all that sort of stuff. Our guys were older. They didn't really need that. Yes, they needed a few days, but they were going to school by the beginning of the term. So whatever that was, 2nd of June or something like that. So that was going to be a bit normal for them. We didn't live, like I say, close to friends and family, so nobody was visiting, and we were all really struggling with this kind of cabin fever thing. Anyway, I can confirm that 2 months later we did take them away on holiday. And should I say that we maybe told a few porkies to certain people about where we went? I don't know if I should admit to that.
Oh, Scott, you've just...
I know.
I can't feel my legs. Come on then, spill the beans.
So we said that we were going to visit friends in family in Scotland, but we didn't. We went to Euro Disney.
In Scotland?
No, in Paris.
That's that's the maddest thing to do with any child, let alone children who've just moved into you. Why did you lie?
We lied because they wouldn't allow us to apply for the adoption order, which, on reflection, whatever the reasons where it happened. I think because it was so soon and they were very against us doing anything. And I mean, absolutely anything. Bearing in mind, we were one of the first to go through the agency.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, we need to be extra careful. This has got a bigger chance of a disruption or a breakdown or whatever it was, whatever words they used. So we have to be very careful. You can't go anywhere. No, we don't give out passports. No, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of conversation. And it was like, but this is how our normal life is. And they have to get used to our normal life like fairly quickly. And there was a part of me that was going, well, we're not going to have as many holidays when the boys come along. And
sensible.
How wrong was I? If anything, increased. But so within 2.5 months, we'd taken them away for a weekend, but not just on our own. We took them with family as well. So they had all this.
Well, that's a really interesting point. I think that the strength in numbers.
There is that as well. Yeah, there is. And they were away with their cousins who were a similar age. That was an opportunity for them to get to know each other as well. Yeah. And, to know each other better. And also, we had family with us who could help. And, it was, I don't know. It doesn't seem as kind of wicked as what it did back then, but certainly back then it felt really naughty and irresponsible and all that sort of stuff. But actually it did set us in good stead for the older two just to go, okay, we're going on holiday, but we'll be back in a week or we'll be back in a fortnight. There's no drama. They were really cool with that stuff like that, and they really adjusted quite well. There was situations, of course there was, when we were away where we thought, maybe we shouldn't have come here, maybe we've been away too long, all that sort of stuff. But on the whole, the run up to was fine. It was just some of the kind of changing nature of a holiday, right, where are we going to eat tonight? We're going to this restaurant. Oh, that restaurant's closed or it's too far away from where we are or whatever. That would kind of, increase kind of anxiety of where am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? Who am I going to have to, all these kinds of things. If you've got a kind of, not a disorder, but if you've got kind of anxiety around eating generally, and when you're in a foreign country with different foods and all that sort of stuff, that can cause havoc with a young person, can it? So, yeah.
I guess that we're opening up a different kind of worms about people not necessarily doing what their social worker says.
I do not advocate for
which
just
on a
say,
professional level.
yeah, please do not. Do as I
Always
say,
do
not
just,
as I did.
yeah. But having said that, I mean, I think, well, it's a bit of an aside, but I think that oftentimes, if I'm on groups, I see that people just sort of like they often the advice from social workers in those very first months can be often really restrictive and conservative, and doesn't reflect what's going on the ground. It's really risk averse. So it's these well-worn paths of like, don't have any people around and all of that kind of thing. And you've got to, like you say, you've got to say this is our normal life. But when we did everything as we should the first time, did exactly, and it was nearly catastrophic. By the time Shania came, bless her little heart, we had the family round within days because that's our life. It's a big family life.
Yeah.
But we also knew that actually the key thing was that we did all the important stuff. That there was no shared care. It was 100% us care in a busy house. But I think that's like you, isn't it? That this is our life, but this is going to be your life as well for children. I think that's
exactly.
Really
I mean, obviously, you have to adjust things, don't you? Because things do adjust when you have children come along. Anyway, but I think you can safely say by 3 months in, you kind of know what it is that you're going to have to adjust initially, and it's like the short term, medium term, long term, isn't it? But in the long term, you might get back to things that you might not be able to do in the short term. But that was certainly something that, when the boys first saw our book and there was all these places that we'd been, and the first thing they said to us was, when do we go on holiday? Well, that was one of the things. It wasn't the first thing, but it was one of the first things. And we were like, okay, so they're up for this. So that's a good start, and as well as the fact he liked animals, all the stuff that we had been concerned about. Was kind of put aside, and one of those things was holidays. And I now have probably 3 of the snobbiest kids when it comes to holiday, because the 2 older ones now pay their own way. So if we're going somewhere, we'll always invite them to come along, but they have to kind of pay their own way because they're adults, they've got jobs, all that sort of stuff. But if it's like not somewhere nice or somewhere that no, we're not staying there. No.
Full stop.
Where are you taking us? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, canapes.
For tea, for supper, papa. So yeah, it's and we just went away there, didn't we? On the cruise in March.
It's hard to keep track, to be honest with you.
And the 5 of us. Well, actually, there was more than 5 of us, which we haven't really talked about yet. But the 5 boys were all back together, and the girlfriend, and an unexpected little visitor as well, who appeared to arrive, or appeared to be whatever the terminology is, 6 weeks before. So we had a 6-week pregnant girlfriend with us as well.
Well, and on that bombshell.
Yeah, no, my grandchild to be. Anyway, we'll come back to that, I'm sure.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, but that was interesting. The 5 of us being back together, because we haven't done a holiday like that for so long together. And my anxiety was high before, because I've been on these ones before with the 5 of us, and it never went well.
It does seem like a pressure cooker environment, doesn't it? In some senses, because it's not just the routines; it's the fact that we all like if children are at school, we've got our jobs and we've got our lives. Then we're all apart, and the time that we're together is limited. But if the minute you set off on your holiday, that's it. You're all together. And I think I was thinking, well, taking children on holiday can be difficult anyway, all children. But I guess we're talking about something that's a bit more than that, aren't we? We're talking about children with complex, those hidden disabilities or those anxieties or stresses, mental health that can be sometimes a bit fragile, experiences that we're not necessarily familiar with.
And also the thing of packing a suitcase. Packing a suitcase for some of our young people can be so triggering, because they think, oh, where am I going now?
Those sort of disassociated memories with those moves, those big transitions into the unknown, isn't it, as well? Because again, children, I can imagine what going on holiday looks like and how it feels and all of those different sensations, those physical sensations, but actually for a child, that's just uncharted territory, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
So did your boys have you seen sort of a palpably different behavior in your boys when they were little and on holiday as versus to home, or was it just the same behavior in a different location? It's just we're all arguing, but it's sunny.
It's interesting when I think back on it, because I think there was elements of, well, we're just somewhere else and it's the same stuff that's going on. But I think with the interesting thing with Fraser and Brandon was they seemed to relax on their holidays. We would, we couldn't afford to do some of the stuff that we do in holiday at home. Does that make sense? So, theme parks and stuff like that in the UK, particularly, we did. I mean, we murdered America literally when they were younger. We were never away from the place. We were there 3-4 times a year. It was actually. It got to the stage where even Brandon was like, "Can we go somewhere else?" And that's
why America?
Generally because of the cost of living there.
Right.
You could get a villa for a week for 200 quid. Food was cheap. You just go and literally ram a shopping trolley full of food and you get it for 50 quid. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Outlet stores for clothes for everybody. For us as a family, we would do all our clothes shopping in America. We'd go into the outlets and get trainers for like tuppence compared to here. And so it was kind of a holiday, and it was also kind of an opportunity to live a different life as well, just for a week or two. And they seemed to relax when they were in that kind of atmosphere as well. They had a lot more to do because we'd be going out to the theme parks, roller coasters, whatever it was that we were doing.
Yeah.
We'd also generally go for a villa with a pool, so that when we did have a down day, they would still have something to do. They would still be able to muck about in the pool and stuff like that. And I think that the one thing about a country like that is you could tire your children out quite easily just by going out for the day. And they'd obviously by 8 o'clock, including you. So I saw them to relax, and like I said, a few issues over meal times, and I think that was mainly when we were going out for dinner. Where are we going? What are we doing? What's the menu like? Is it going to be stuff that I like? All that kind of stuff. Because, America's very similar in terms of the way they live, in terms of food and stuff like that. But actually, for a young person who doesn't maybe understand that, it can be quite tricky for them to process that in their mind, so that they're fine with stuff like that. So, we just have a couple of times where, there would be kind of meltdowns over dinner. And when I say meltdowns, I mean, we're as bad for probably not helping them because we didn't understand what the meltdown was about. And it's only now, sitting years later, that I can sit there and go, yeah, that was that, wasn't it? And, I can think of a few crackers where, I've had to be walking in a pair of flip-flops down the side of a highway, chasing, I'm not going to mention the name of the young person, but chasing the young person to try and get him to stop because, he'd effed and jeffed at us and, all that sort of stuff. But actually, that's partially on me as well, because we didn't get it. We didn't understand what was going on. So it was just like, will you just eat your bloody dinner, So there's a lot of learning in there. But again, it's learning that you do on reflection. It's not learning that you do on the spot and go, oh yeah, that's a trigger. Yeah.
We all look back and see we can just see we can sort of see it from it all playing out, can't we? We can see that we were a bit stressed. We were a bit this, they were a bit that. We missed it. We missed all the cues and we just said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
And I think in some ways we hope that because we're on holiday that things are going to be different.
Oh yeah, we're going to be
lulled into this. Yeah, we're lulled into the sense of false sense of security. It doesn't really work. But that was them too, and but it was very different with Jacob. I mean, very different. Like the complete, this would start weeks before, and it was just like it was never ending until we were actually on holiday. And when we got on holiday, that's when it kind of things just went. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We used to.
I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting though, the picking out some of the stuff there about you kind of having a really controlled environment, and it never really clicked on me that a lot of your holidays are bespoke in the sense that, right, we've got a villa, we're on our own, we've got that we're not interacting with people we don't know, we can control that. And I think that some of our experiences on holiday have always been around other children.
Yeah.
So one of my children is she's like queen of the jungle. And so within about 30 seconds of arriving at a hotel, she will have rounded up a collection of children and she will have declared herself the queen, and they will all rally beneath her and they will overthrow whatever authority that they can get their hands on. Amazing. I mean, just one of those kids, totally fine. Just all within the sort of spectrum of normal.
The Pied Piper.
And I've seen her do it, and it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. A sister really struggling with that. Her older sister, and we had one incident where we had one evening that just unraveled in ways like as extreme as we've ever had, and it all starts over nothing. Everyone's tired, a long day at the pool, lots of kids, and one of my kids just totally not managing the social interactions which are all really like sparking, lots of kids making new alliances and allegiances, new friendships, relationships. And it culminated. There's a few things it culminated in. One was her on the top floor, running around the top floor of the hotel, shouting, "My dad's abusing me! My dad's abusing me!" at like midnight. And me, not just thinking. For one, I don't know what the Spanish is for jail. I don't know how. I can't talk myself out of this. Like in English, I'd go, right, okay. I feel like some sort. It's not great. It's not. It's just terribly not good. But actually, just my child's just so. And I look back now and I see I have no animosity. There's no kind of like a sense of like, oh, you little rascal. It was just like a girl who was just really struggling.
Yeah.
And then she flipped and she's tried to get off the balcony. And we had to get her off, and it was like we were all just in absolute abject terror. And so that was probably the culmination. After that, we just thought we can't do what we did before. That was when she was an age, and she said, "I don't want to do this anymore." And so she sort of started to stay at home because we got a big family. But the thing on the way home, and I'm going to talk about Madeleine McCann, so bear with me. I was an idiot, and she was really savvy to the news, and on the airport on the way home, I was joking with her, going, "Oh, we were going to go through security," because she was, when you can tell when your kids are fine, you can have a joke, and you can tell when they're not. She was fine. I was going, "All right, cool. We're going to go through security. What if I tell them, that what if you're a terrorist? And she's like a 9-year-old girl, so she's fine." And she looked at me with the cold, dead eyes of a killer, and she said, "I'm going to tell them that you stole Madeleine McCann."
Gulp.
And I thought I brought that on myself, but I thought and I think she saw the look of abject terror in my eyes, and she thought, "I have you now. I have you now." And clearly that didn't pan out, but and I just thought, firstly, I was an idiot. I shouldn't have said that. Absolute fool, absolute pillock. Just there's no words for how ridiculously, my mouth get me into trouble.
We've all done it. We've all done silly things on sets.
Yeah, and I just thought, but actually, my kid isn't enjoying this.
Yeah.
So I think we then readjusted, but there's enough of us that we can readjust. We can leave we can leave like 2/3 of us at home and still go on a proper.
That's the thing, and I mean, I won't tell you the story, but Tris and I were nearly tasered in America. Because
it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I know, because of something that happened. But
you can't not right. Stop right there. Wind that back.
Serious.
Don't just.
Yeah, I'm absolutely serious. And you know what? It's one of those situations where I can't remember what it was, because each situation, you kind of sometimes you can block stuff out, can you? And I have blocked the most part what happened out with this one. I think we'd said we would go somewhere. It was one of those situations. Yes, it was. That's what it was. So we said we would go somewhere for after dinner one evening, and it was just 3 of us. So it was me, Tris, and a child. Again, not going to mention any names because I don't think it's fair. They won't mind me telling the story, but I just don't think I should use a name for my own kind of thing. Anyway, long story short, we did go out. We had dinner, and then we went to this like amusement-y kind of place where you could, a little bit like a fun fair almost.
Yeah.
Kind of situation. They had this like a big slingshot, and they had kind of Western theme, them buffalo Broncos and all that sort of stuff. All this kind of stuff.
It's like a carnival kind of thing. So,
exactly. Yeah, so it was American style, so it'd be new to us. Anyway, so we'd spent a few quid in it, and we were like, right, okay, it's time to go now. And of course, said young person did not want to go. And it had been brewing all day, clearly knackered from all the stuff we've been doing. And it just, I mean, this was this was in the early days of when, you know, we started to experience CPV, because we were like, wow, okay, Shizzle's got real here. You know, he's like this, he's doing it in public. Like we never had experienced that before. He's now doing it in public, screaming, shouting at us, and we were trying to get him back to the car, not physically get him, like not, you know, not like dragging him or anything. It was just like trying to coax him back to the car so that we could get in the car and disappear out of there, you know, and get him back, and you know everything would calm down.
Do what you had to do,
yeah. Unfortunately, he wasn't having any of that, and there was park security that were kind of following us around, because obviously he was quite young. So for a young person to be using language like that,
using grown-up words.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and you know, I mean, that would kind of be a red flag to any normal adult who's just like living their life. Anyway, we did get near to the car, and there was a kind of, I don't know, it was a high fence thing, and it was you know, like, knowing how he is now, I know that he was looking for an escape route. That's what he was doing. He was in a heightened state of, you know, like anxiety. Everything was going wrong because we said we'd gone back, all that sort of stuff, and he was looking for his escape route. And he went to climb a fence, and obviously we didn't want him climbing the fence because it actually went over into a lake where there would potentially be alligators and stuff like that. You know,
not a good thing.
I'd rather get kicked in the, you know, wherever than, you know, have to take my child home in a box kind of thing. Anyway, next thing we see you know, when you just you see blue lights and you think, what is this?
Strange blue lights everywhere. What could that be?
So, needless to say,
I've never heard this story. This is great.
No, I know. Yeah, these blue lights were attached to a car that had police right on the side of it.
Oh, thank heavens, the police are here.
So essentially, park security had rung the police because they thought that Jacob was being abducted or abused or something like that. And you know, it's a fair comment because it probably did look like that. But rather than understanding, you know, asking us the questions and stuff like that. Anyway, they were. We were told to step back. We weren't told to. It was demanded that we step back, and they didn't have guns, but they did have tasers in their hands, and we were like, oh shit. So they didn't make us put our hands on our heads or anything like that, but we just said, look, if you let us tell you what the story is, we can explain it. So that
I just have this vision of like them saying, and which one is the father, and you both going, me.
Well, that was it. I mean, we kind of had that issue as well. So I let Twist do the talking because, you know, that's what I would do. So anyway, explained it. And we weren't tasered anyway. But they managed to calm him down, get him in the car with us, because he wasn't like he once he'd calmed down, because, you know, authority figures in a uniform tend to bring them down a little bit.
They can.
And they go, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to be reacting like this, and, you know, whatever.
And quite a distraction as well, isn't it? It's quite a kind of like a total change in, like, oh my goodness, something different, unexpected is happening. Yeah.
And he was able to explain to them that, you know, he wasn't being abused, he wasn't being abducted, all this kinds of thing that they would have been concerned about, and that was fine. And whilst he didn't really want to come back with us because he wanted to play on this thing that he wasn't allowed to play on, because, you know, not being funny, we'd spent probably £100 already, and, you know, we'd reached our budget, so they let us go. But that wasn't the last time that it happened, because it happened in New York as well. In New York City as well, and the same thing, exactly the same thing. So, you know, and that's what I'm saying by, you know, us choosing where we holiday and then learning from the mistakes that you make. So people take the mickey out of me all the time. You take the mickey out of me, like, questioning why we have the kind of holidays we have and stuff like that. We have them because that's where my children feel safe. So cruise ship, you know, cruise ship is a prime example. We did our first ever cruise was 3 nights because we thought, you know what, it's 3 nights. Yeah, it's not even a long weekend. It's 3 nights on a cruise ship, and then it's back to normal.
No, that is a long weekend. Just to be clear, I know you've got a very skewed.
I would say 4 or 5 is a long weekend.
We've talked about this, Scott, and we really need to know that is a long weekend. That is technically
Okay,
4
right.
days.
So,
right. Okay.
So 3 nights, 4 days. So we did it as a trial, and what we found was the security of them being on a cruise ship. Okay, they were 11 and 12 at that time, so they were that little bit older, but they were 11 and 12. The security of them being on that cruise ship, having a place to go, having a place to hang out, having a place to meet friends. We still had our rules, we still had our agreed rules that we had. So you must come back for a shower before dinner. We all go to dinner, and then you can go out afterwards with your friends and stuff like that. But we found that actually that worked so well for them. And I'm talking about just Fraser and Brandon then. And then when Jacob came along, we didn't do a cruise for a couple of years because he was simply too young. And then and also because of his reactions to various things that might happen, we were worried. We were worried he might throw himself off the side of the cruise ship if he had a paddy. I mean, these are real fears. They were literally real fears. Anyway, we needn't have worried because actually they're the kind of holidays where it's almost, I know people take the mickey. I do know that, and I know that it's not for everybody, especially not for you if you travel sick and all that stuff. But actually, it's like oh God, I'm going to regret saying this. It is like a really nice version of Butlins on the sea, with great food and great entertainment and all that sort of stuff. And I know you can get that at Butlins and what have you, but Butlins really wouldn't suit my children because it just isn't for them. There's just too much. Whereas on a cruise ship, they know what they're doing. They know they've got sports to do. They know they've got all that sort of stuff. And that's why it works for us. So whilst everybody takes the mickey out of it, we really do. We get to enjoy a holiday if we are on that holiday, which is why we do that holiday. Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes. I don't think you need to justify it, and it works for you. And I think that there's a big period of time where we just couldn't go on holiday, and there was part of that was financial because we just had to give up work and we were kids. And I said this when the conversation was we want 2 more children. My kids said, and I said one of the implications is taking 5 children and 2 adults isn't 1 holiday; it's 2 holidays.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we did some holidays like with friends' houses, and that's what we did. But again, I think I just found it just so incredibly stressful. I know I'm a home bird as well, but we reached a point where Paula just said, "Look, I really want a holiday. I really would like to do it." And the older children were older, so they were all adults by then, or young adults.
And to be fair, I was just going to say we're at that stage as well, and I think that's the great stage to be at. And also, I mean, Tris and I, so we were in that position as well. When Jacob came along, we couldn't go on holiday. Yeah. So Tris and I started to do our own thing, like, not all the time, but, he would take a week and I would take a week and I'd go away with a friend, he'd go away with a friend. And it worked really well because at least we were getting a holiday. And then the one holiday a year that we were having as a family was hell. But we did it anyway because, the boys wanted a holiday. So.
No, but I think that's fair, is that do what works for you.
Yeah.
I have no idea how long we've been going on, but I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about one of the issues. It just never even crossed my mind. Me being heteronormative and all that. It's just not even on my mind. But just realizing there's a lot of parts of the world where the equality that we have, which is only relatively new, the equality we have in terms of same-sex marriage. It doesn't translate, and so 2 men with the same surname bringing 2 children or 3 children or any children or child in might potentially flag or raise questions in a way that 2 women wouldn't, because I think people would just women have always looked after kids. So have you ever had to what do you do? Do you have to negotiate that, and is that a conversation? Do you Google it? And
well, it's an interesting one because it's something that we don't really think about too much now. I mean, we've been to a few countries where it's illegal to be in a same-sex relationship, to be gay, to be, however you want to phrase it, term it, what have you, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Jamaica. I'm just trying to think. Those are the 3 that stand out because Jamaica was one of the very first places that we went to with the boys in 2009, just after my dad died, because we could afford to go because I'd been left a little bit of money, and we knew that it wasn't a country that was very friendly towards gay people, shall we say? Yeah. But we'd done our homework and worked out that, as if you were on resort, and Tris and I don't really do public displays of affection anyway. I mean, especially not after 25 years, but, even back then, 2009.
Oh, the love is dried up.
Yeah, we wouldn't be the kind to be walking down the street and kissing and cuddling in public. That's not us. I think we are kind of still the kind of gay people that might have been wary and scared of doing stuff like that. Do you know? I mean, because of being shouted at in the street, or even physically abused, or arrested, or whatever. In Tris's case, arrested because he's that old.
Oh, I know.
When he were a lad, it was proper illegal. But I do remember the first time we went to Jamaica, and I remember it was fine on the flight. I didn't think about it, and then the time came where we had to go through the passport control and get our stamps and all that sort of stuff, and be questioned by the scary man in the booth. And I remember Tris and I were like, right, how are we going to do this? And Tris said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take the boys through and you go through on your own. So that if the boys say, who are you here with? So we kind of, it wasn't that we were telling the boys to be deceitful. It's just, we were telling the boys, look, this is a country that doesn't really like gay people. So it's best if you go through with Dad, and if they ask any questions, just look at Dad, kind of thing. And that's what we did. And I went through on my own.
Because you don't want to raise their anxiety, do you? You don't want to get them stressed, because my kids would just blurt out the truth, just
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm with him and him over there. But
they make me try. I shouldn't say.
But what's really interesting now is that we've done this a couple of times now, and because next time we just went through as a family to Jamaica. So we went to Jamaica. I think we've been 3 times over the course of good few years, and we just in the end just went, right. Well, they didn't ask that question, so let's just go. So we went through. Yeah. The issues were when we came back to the UK. So coming back and having passports checked in the UK, and so many questions about who's who, what what's the story, where have you been? I know like people get those questions, but the boys were actually asked specifically, where's your mother? Now, I get what I get why now. Don't get me wrong, that it still jars on me a little bit, but children do come from a female body, so it's a legitimate question in some ways, but the kind of the sensitivity of it wasn't great. So we've had more issues coming back into the UK than we've had actually going into countries where it's illegal to be gay. Dubai, again, I see a lot of stuff online. Gay people saying they will never set foot in Dubai. I've got a friend who will never set foot in Dubai. She's a heterosexual female, but she just doesn't like the kind of human rights stuff. And I do get it, but to me some of it's historical in that respect. But also, I want to see places in the world, and I'm willing to take that risk because I'm not overly or outwardly affectionate with my husband. I can contain it for a week or 2 or 7 years or however long since.
I mean, I know you, and I think, like you say, I think it's a sort of an expression of your personality, isn't it? That you're just that's the way you are. It's not
exactly. Yeah,
you're not hiding anything. You just it's the way I am with Paula. That occasionally I think, I should hold a hand.
Yeah. But if we're out like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Slap around the chops, filthy beast.
But there is an element of that as well. Yeah.
But I just thought it was an interesting conversation because and that again is children who are not. That's slightly compounded more, isn't it, by the fact that that they're children. They don't look like you.
No, exactly. Yeah. And we've never been to. I would never go to a place like Saudi Arabia where literally I would come back with no hands if I went there, kind of thing. There's places in the world that I just would not go. Russia, I wouldn't go anyway to Russia for more than 25 million reasons. But
there's places in Africa, isn't there, as well? Some of those African countries that do have tourists, kind of like stuff going on. But it's something that I thought. I mean, in some ways, it's a little bit off topic, but it's not really, is it? Because what is it? Still, 1 in 6 adopters are from same-sex couples, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
Potentially.
And I think that, I mean, I don't tend to read so much online as I used to do. I obviously still engage with people as you do, but, some of the
Oh, I
groups.
engage with people, Scott. You know
Oh,
me.
we know, we've seen,
Oh,
I've
I
seen
tell
it.
you. I tell you.
But I used to read a lot of kind of stuff about people traveling with kids and, how there was issues at, passport control and all that sort of stuff. But I think as well as the children grow up as well, by the time they get to 16, 17, they can go through well, if you live in the EU, of course, and you
Don't
fly
start.
from an EU country, you can just put your passport into the machines and it reads it now, as it used to do for people.
Oh, you could do that. We did that when we came back from our holidays, the ones I've
Yeah.
just come back from.
Yeah, yeah, you do on the way back, but not always on the way there, depending on the country.
That's
But
true.
anyway,
That's true.
but yeah, by the time they get to a certain age, they can go through those on their own anyway. So, the excitement of going to the passport reader and not having to speak to the man and all that sort of stuff. And kind of just, and also there's a part of you that just thinks, do you know what? I'm going to somebody else's country where the laws are different, and I just have to accept that, it doesn't mean to say that I respect the traditions of that country particularly, but I'm respectful of myself and I want to actually come home again. But I also want to see some of the world that, I wouldn't have been able to see, 40 years ago.
I don't think you have to justify it to anyone. You'd make your own choices on your own terms. So that's cool. I do think that
just don't at me. Right? Don't at me.
Yeah.
Don't
I think that we've probably covered everything. I think days out. I think that it's just such a complicated issue for children. I am sort of breaking children's routines, and we've got a top 10 list of tips, haven't we?
Which seems to have been added to since I looked at it earlier. Since we've been chatting, it seems like
just
you've
by
added
magic.
loads of stuff.
I think, I was just thinking about days and where you're saying about theme park, and I know that we've had some real interesting moments in theme parks. My kids love them, absolutely love them, but just
they're overstimulating. They're just overstimulating, and if you don't think your child is overstimulated, if you've never experienced something of that nature with your child, you don't know that they're going to be overstimulated until they're overstimulated. Do you know what I mean? And that is just, that's one of the things, the joys of, having a child that's,
it's so hard, isn't it? Because I think that we want our children to enjoy that, like the joy of going to a theme park and being on a roller coaster or eating too much candy floss and all of that stuff that's kind of a rite of passage for children. You want them to be able to participate in the normal stuff and feel like to have those memories. And it just sometimes is just so difficult. And
I've just remembered a really funny story that you're going to love, but I'll tell at the end because
does it involve vomit?
It's hilarious. May well do.
Oh,
but you will love the story. You won't be able to vomit because you'll just be laughing so hard. Anyway, So should we do these top tips?
Yeah. Should we do it like?
Well,
you did the first one. Now did the second one.
Right. Well, you've put don't go on a package holiday. I think that's a little bit restrictive there. I would say that, and my suggestion would be consider if you could actually build your own holiday. So, book things separately, because then you've got the flexibility. If it does go a bit wrong in the first day of arriving and you might need an extra day at that place where you're staying rather than going on. I'm not saying that's how people do their holidays, but I'm just saying consider if you can build it yourself and have a little bit of flexibility so that you can work, so that it would work for you and your family if you need to change anything. But
even things like transfers, arrange your own transfers.
I would definitely agree with that.
It's all costing money, but even the fact of having to wait in a bus and all of that just is just extra stimulation. It's extra stress, isn't it? And I'm stressed, but it's all money, isn't it? Maybe not money. Yeah. So that was number one.
Yeah.
Don't go on a package holiday. Number two, and contain them. Go slow, no excitement, limited. Well, I think that's like I think sometimes aim smaller. Don't do 3 things a day. Do 2 things a day. Do 1 thing a day.
Yeah.
Just slow it all down.
Yeah.
And just build in gaps like decompression, peaceful tranquility. And if something is working, hey, you spent, Ish and I spent 4 hours on the indoor pool with Paula going, but it's sunny outside. It's working. I was regulated. And I was regulated. So it was 4 hours on the indoor pool. Poor girl, pasty white now, bless her.
Yeah.
It
should be a miracle.
Lost suntan. It came back whiter.
And also, the thing I'd say about what you've just covered there is, remember, it's a holiday for you adults as well. So why would you ram yourself with 100 different things to do in the first day that you've arrived? Have some downtime, test the waters, see how things are going, see how things are around a hotel pool. It might well be that it doesn't work, but actually just test it and see what happens. But keep it low key for the first couple of days and build up to whatever it is that you want to do. Let them get to explore their own environment first, because if you can't do that, then it's just going to continue on for the week, isn't it? Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
So number 3, transitions. I don't want to go. Who doesn't want to go? Is this Al? When you typed this, was this you speaking? I don't want to go.
This is one of my daughters who wakes up on the morning of holidays going, don't want to go.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Why do you not want to go? Yeah, and that wasn't because she was frightened of going. It was because she wanted to teach me a lesson. And I was all for leaving her with a block of cheese in the airing cupboard. Some water. But
Harry Potter?
We had to persuade her to go, which is like immeasurably stressful, a crap way to start your holiday.
Yeah. But I think that the transition period is quite hard, because not only normally when we go on holiday outside in school holidays. So they've had the end of term, they've had a transition potentially that may have included going up a year in school, new teachers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bottle of Coke job, and the kind of the bottle's been fizzed up and you've just literally taken the top off and there she blows, or he blows, for that matter. And I think that's, we need to relate some of the transitions. So it's not just a holiday transition that's going to take them away from the home, from what they know, their plan to sit in front of YouTube for the next 6 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever the holiday length is. But it's also what has gone on. Have they said goodbye to a school friend, or all those sorts of things?
Absolutely. You should do a course on this, because this is like a deep vein of knowledge you've got there.
What, transitions or holidays? Because I feel like I could do the holiday one.
All of it. Number 4, I've got bring a friend. And I don't necessarily mean a child friend. I mean another adult.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it can work really well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes I hate my mum and dad, so I'll go and speak to Sue, Bob, Dave, and someone who can just walk them away, someone who can walk us away.
Yeah.
Someone who can kind of go.
Yeah. If they understand the dynamics of the family, then it's brilliant. It really is. And, we've surrounded ourselves over the years with friends who we go on holiday with, not just for that reason, because we enjoy going on holiday with them as well. But they understand our family dynamic. They help us out. They will, if one of the boys needs some time out from us or whatever, then they can go and do something with them. And it can work really, really well. Absolutely. Yes, a family holiday is a great thing, and it's really important to be able to bond and, develop your family. But actually, there's no harm in having, another family come with you. And sometimes...
Or grandparents, uncles.
Exactly.
We went with Zippy. Zippy and his wife and his kids. And my kids love Zippy, and Zippy is this ball of peace and calm that he would just, our kids would just go and decompress with Zippy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So think about it. Do think about it.
Excellent.
Go to the same place. I think, I would say, what are we, number 5 now? Yeah, go to the same place. I think that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that without doubt, because we went for years to the same place. And when I say the same place, I mean the same part of the country. I don't mean the same hotel.
I was thinking the same room in the same hotel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there is limits to some of that if you're going to do your own thing. Can I just say, because sometimes if you are doing it on a budget, then it's difficult. But we found, actually, we used to go to the same area that the villas were. Yeah. So it was on the same complex. So that worked really well. And also, they know where the supermarket is. They know where the theme parks are. They know the distances. They know all that sort of stuff.
All that
exactly. It can do. Yeah. It doesn't stop the questions. Are we nearly there yet? When you've left the airport and you've had the 8-hour flight or whatever. But it's certainly I would say, if you can, it would be a really good thing to be in a routine. And sometimes, especially if you're using a kids club and stuff like that, some of the entertainment staff are the same. So when your child returns, a couple of times that's happened to us in Thailand when Jacob was there. He'd go back to the same kids club and it would be the same staff that were there. And he was just like instantly, wow, okay. And they knew him because the Thai, great place to go because they're all about kids and it doesn't matter what they do. They're kids at the end of the day. They could be breaking windows, setting fire to things. They're kids. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That's their approach kind of thing. I'm maybe over-egging that one a little bit, but that's how it felt,
Yeah. But it's interesting because I work with them. I've got some foster carers who from that part of the world, and there's a real cultural thing around children that we just don't have about how children are treated and how children are perceived. And I think sometimes finding a place that is really, really like child-centered.
Yeah,
it can
absolutely.
Just be
and behavior is language at the end of the day. We keep saying that. Behavior is language. So, and that's how absolutely. So, yeah.
I would say have a plan B, which is always have something up your sleeve.
C, D, E, F, G,
Z, A1. And that's where if you've got other people, like, I know for us, sometimes it's been like, oh, we all want to go out, and one of my children is like, this is a bad idea. But there's another adult who'll go, I'll stay back. I was looking for a quiet day. I can read a book by the pool. And so having that's where those things can really help. A plan B that we were going to go to this park, but actually we're going to go to this park. And that's a bit about managing. It's one of the later points, the next point, but it's also about just not getting stuck on a plan.
Exactly. And that is the next point, isn't it? The next one is manage expectations. And I think that's a really key thing because we're all very guilty of just changing plans. Again, we're on holiday, so it's like, okay, we've seen something better to do, so let's, or something more, I don't know, whatever, more engaging cheaper to do with a child. Cheaper to do. Oh, look, it's a McDonald's with a play park on the side. We'll go there. Exactly. But the shock and I've talked about this a couple of times tonight. If you change things, expect it to go wrong, because it will go wrong. You're not at home, maybe you can change things at home. You can say you were having pasta for dinner and in actual fact it's rice, and you get away with it at home because actually they're in an environment where it doesn't matter. But do that on holiday, it's not going to work out for you as well. So really kind of manage the expectations. Don't go making sudden changes. And, it might well be that you don't have a child who asks, what are we doing today? Where are we eating tonight? All that sort of stuff. So if they're not like that, don't tell them. Don't be telling them to then go and change it later on. Just don't give yourself that hassle. Just chill. You're on holiday, love. You're on holiday.
Chill the funk out.
Wine and chill.
Gadgets. Get your gadgets. Get your gadgets. Take power banks. Get everything charged.
Yeah.
Connect to Wi-Fi.
Absolutely.
Noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah.
Tuck them in a corner under a blanket. Yeah. And I think let yourself off the hook for a fortnight.
Yeah.
or a week.
I have to agree with that completely because there's been a couple of times where I've tried to be one of those parents that says, well, I don't have an iPad child or a TV child, the TV isn't my babysitter sort of thing. But actually, do you know what? And it was more with Jacob, actually, I found on the longer haul flights, because obviously being diagnosed with FASD, his sleeping patterns are all over the place anyway.
Yeah.
So sleeping on a flight isn't going to be a massive, great issue for him. He'll sleep whenever he sleeps during the week. But what we found was he was constantly on the screen, and there's a lot to be said for these screens in the backs of the plane where you can play the games and watch movies and stuff. Just let them get on with it. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's different if you're going out and, you want them to engage in an activity or something like that, obviously, but you would do that at home. But do you know what? If they need a couple of hours in a safe space away from home with an iPad or with a Kindle. Who am I kidding? Kids don't read, do they?
Kindle?
I meant to say
you
the
can
other
get the children's Kindles, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. What
the
are the others? Yeah.
iPad Fires. Yeah.
Let them
Switches.
do it.
Whatever.
It's like you say,
Yeah.
they're going to be back at school in a fortnight and they won't have it. So let them crack on. And if it gives you a couple hours of downtime as well on your holiday, because it's not just a holiday for them, it's a holiday for you as well, then there you go.
Yeah. If they want to stay in the hotel room on a sunny day and play on their iPad.
Oh, well, I'm telling you right now, it does happen. Tris took Fraser and Brandon on holiday to Abu Dhabi, gave them the opportunity to go jet skiing, which you could tell I wasn't there because it wouldn't happen if I was there.
Yeah.
And Fraser decided, no, I'm going to talk to my girlfriend on my phone all morning in Abu Dhabi. And whatever.
Well, no, that's really interesting though, isn't it? Because I could imagine as an adult, you go, I've brought you to Abu Dhabi. I'm giving you this amazing opportunity to do some amazing stuff, and you want to sit in that bedroom, and you can imagine how that can then start to create a tension in the. So I think it is just, hey, if you want to be in Abu Dhabi and chill out in your room on your gadgets, do it.
And save me 50 quid.
Well, yeah, that's that. 50 quid. Cheap at half the price. I'd have taken them out for 20.
Oh, with the gun.
No, much more expensive than that.
Well, the last two, I think, are really quite reasonable points.
Absolutely.
I think there are actually two that work really well in just number 9 on the list.
9 and 10. So I think they're distinctly quite different.
Yeah. Well, it is. But I mean, if this sounds like a lot of hassle after what we've talked about tonight, then number 9 is don't take them. And do you know what's interesting? The older they get and the more independent they get, obviously that gets easier. And I know it's hard, but we also had situations. Tris and I used to have one holiday a year with Fraser and Brannon where we would go off for a week on our own, and they would go to nannies for that week just so we could have a week on our own. Okay. It was 1 week a year. It normally happened around our anniversary in May time, I think. And it worked really well because we got a break. We got to go and enjoy the sunshine without, being dragged by the leg into the pool, to have our books splashed with chlorinated water or whatever it was, right? Just gave us that week.
It's a living hell, Scott.
Yeah. And they were spoiled rotten at nannies. Do you know, so that's the option. That's the other option. I mean, I wouldn't suggest, if you're doing 4 or 5 holidays a year because that's what you're used to, that you leave them at home for every one with, a friend,
Nobody
relative,
does 4 or 5 holidays a year, Scott. What fantasy world are you living in?
It must be my own fantasy world, is it?
It's a fantasy world. No. I'll tell you what we did. What we realized was that one of my children actually, it was a really complicated dynamic about them really not wanting to go, but feeling they should go. So we had to kind of create a space where they could say, actually, I'd rather stay at home. And because I've got older children, you're like in the mid-20s, that was manageable. And we sort of set up a really enjoyable week at home for them with different things, like you were saying with nanny, but with different things, so it was all planned out. But what it meant was that we could then go on holiday and just do that. And it just is, everyone's happy, and we did get the odd phone call. They've locked themselves in the bathroom and they've called the grandma the C word.
So
is that, and why are you ringing me?
Yeah. But, well, I mean, the best one we had was when we got the phone call saying, he's taken the matches that were in the drawer and he set fire to his duvet. It was like, oh, was he? Oh, yeah, he's done that a few times at home. Yeah. Well, you just have to tell him, Jacob. I just said his name. Shit. Oh well, he'll be fine with that. Just take the matches off him and tell him they're not for you, and that's fine. And he'll have seen the danger in it. But that's it happens, doesn't it? But that's why you need to trust. And I'm not saying I didn't trust who he was with, but what I'm saying is you need to make sure that they understand your child when they're bored, when they're heightened, when they're, all that sort of stuff, because otherwise you come back to more stress than you went away to get rid of.
That particular example was probably a transformative experience in our family life, because up until then, maybe one member of our family had thought that it was just us over-egging the pudding.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well, isn't there?
Oh God! Oh no, the things you were saying are absolutely true. They're really little characters. That was interesting. And the final point, which is this my point or your point? I can't remember now.
I think this is your point. It sounds like you.
It does sound like me. Just don't go.
Here comes Mr. Humbug. There goes Mr.
But if it's that stressful
and
it's that difficult, stay at home, take a week off work, go to the local park. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like try and, just take out all the stressful bits and just do the good stuff. Stay at home. And there was a few years when we were totally, totally broke and we did that. We just, I signed us up with the National Trust said, how many family members are? Oh, and I got really, really cross with the National Trust. You would put in the ages of your children. And so I think Rosa was 7 and it was saying, what's a marital status? I was going, what the hell? And then so what I did was I put them all,
She's engaged.
She's engaged. Has she got any children? And so I went back and I started again and I just put ridiculous, I gave them all things like PhDs and doctorates and called mine. This is Professor Shania Coates, who is now, she's 7 years old. And the card was, we went, but we just had so much fun going to National Trust, and it was, it was so much cheaper.
They were that excited about being asked, how did you get a PhD at the age of 7?
Yeah, absolutely freaking awesome, bless her. And so we just had so much fun. But I think sometimes that is, you don't have to feel the need to go.
And that's the thing, I mean, I know that we do a lot of holidays abroad, but we've done, not like what I class as UK based holidays as well.
Have you ever been camping, Scott?
Yes, I have actually, and I actually really enjoy camping. Can I just say? And people don't believe that about me. They think it's the opposite way around. They think that it's Tris that would enjoy the camping, and it's me that wouldn't enjoy the camping. But it's actually the complete 180 on that one. Absolutely, I don't mind being in a bush.
You in a tent?
You could anytime. If you find me a tent and you want to go away camping, we can do that. As long as there's a shower block, swimming pool, spa. No, I'm joking. No, seriously, I don't mind it. I honestly, it doesn't bother me. When I used to do the Air Cadets, I used to go away camping. I've been loads of places.
You were in the Air Cadets. You were flight officer.
No, I wasn't in the Air Cadets. I was a civilian instructor. I used to go and help out with the Duke of Edinburgh's.
There's so many things about you I don't know.
Oh yeah, you just don't know. Honestly, the only thing that I'd be worried about these days is lack of a hairdryer. But I'm sure I could cope. Just stick a hat on my head. But yeah, I don't mind camping, and camping's a great opportunity. When Fraser and Brandon were younger, we used to go camping all the time. And that was an opportunity to go camping with people as well, to, for them to mix with aunts, uncles. Well, I say aunts and uncles, like people who they called aunt and uncle. And yeah, we had a brilliant time on camping trips, and it gave us the opportunity to have some downtime as well, because there was things for them to do. And I think that's probably, I know we've done a list now, but I think you need to, like you said, you need to have a plan B, a plan C, whatever, but also just have things that you know that they're going to want to do, so that you can kind of do that, because I think that's quite important. I really do.
Oh, so we've got a 10 top tips with 11 top tips now. Yeah,
we could go on forever, couldn't it? We could do a proper countdown. Anyway,
right, we are well into the long grass now. Scott, your story.
Is there anything you wanted to ask me before I go into my story? Just very quickly.
Is this a trick question?
I kind of mentioned it earlier in the podcast, and I said,
you're going to be a grandfather.
I am. Yes, thank you for asking. Now, yes.
I've actually. I didn't know whether it was public.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's on Facebook and everything.
Oh, it's a real thing then. That's actual thing, yeah.
Yeah. So my eldest son is co-creating
with child.
What do you call it? Yeah. Well, his lovely girlfriend Lorna. So when we were on holiday, they did explain to me why she wasn't drinking alcohol, which I think is great, because that means that they've obviously been paying attention to that old drum that we've been banging.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
So she was 6 weeks in, and then when they came back, they did a test, because they came back a couple of days before we did, and they FaceTimed us to tell us. And then so they announced it last week. They had the 12-week scan. She's 13 weeks just gone Saturday. So we've got 7 weeks to wait. They're going to do the gender thing, which I'm kind of, I've got to reply to a message in a minute actually once we've stopped because I don't know if I want to know. I like the old-fashioned way where you get a surprise.
Yeah, get what you're given, don't you?
But it's
I don't
their
know.
choice. It's up to them. Their mum and dad, not me.
Oh.
And last week they sent photos of they sent us pictures of the scan that they'd had, and a little baby girl with the name Baby Cass and Rennie on it, which I don't know. There was just something in that really it just punched me in the gut because I don't underestimate just what that means, if that makes sense. As somebody who could never be a parent, to actually have our surname on another generation and to have a sixth Cass and Rennie that I don't have to look after.
Well, that is the key point. That is the key point.
And it really, I literally, I was walking back to the car park, and I literally had to stop, and I was actually sobbing when I saw it because I didn't. It's not a thing that entered my head. I didn't. It wasn't. I just didn't even think what the surname would be. I just assumed that because they weren't married, that it would go. But that's how it's gone, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, they're not married, Al. Sorry about that.
Well, it's funny you say that, but actually, it's probably a subject for a bigger podcast because when my latest daughter, it's just a bit odd because like my latest grandchild came along and he's a Coates, even though they're not married. Shame they brought in the family. Bless them. No, and they're a dead canny couple, lovely couple, He said backtracking desperately. And he's going to be a Coates, but he's a he. And so that makes me think, that means the name goes on because there's no other he. Yeah. There is a he, but he's not a thing. And there's a she. And it's all very complicated. But it sort of makes me think about adoptees and their names.
Yes, I know. Well, that's the thing, you see.
It's all complicated, isn't it?
And also it made me, I had a long conversation with Fraser about it and the fact that, that's what they're going to have the surname is. And, I can't underestimate how he came to that decision and also what that means to me. I mean, I'm irrelevant in this because I'm I'm an adoptive grandparent, but it could have been so different. And, I'm very kind of honored to Fraser for carrying on that surname because, and to his girlfriend Lorna because,
it matters to him, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's interesting because my daughter had said a few years earlier, she said, look, I'm thinking of changing my name to my biological name. And so that's absolutely fine, of course absolutely fine. But then a few years later, she said, no, actually, she's nailed the colours to the mast in terms of her son.
Yeah, so there you go. Anyway, my very brief story. I feel like I'm promoting a movie here, so it'll be out on the 20th of October. No, it's the due date.
T-shirts and
20th of October is the due date. Me and Mum, not my mum, the mum. We're hoping for the 13th of October, which is my birthday, and it'll be a week before because nobody else has a birthday around my birthday except for me, and everybody forgets it's my birthday. And she's hopeful that it will come. She will come a week early. So am I because we go on holiday on the 27th of October.
Oh, well, that neatly rounded up the whole thing, didn't it? That was perfect. You are the consummate podcast
honestly,
host.
You have to think about these things. And the thing is, I knew that she was potentially pregnant when we booked it as well, which actually I should slap my forehead, but I wasn't allowed to say anything. So, although I had told Tris, I mean, I shouldn't have said that because he might be, no, he doesn't listen to me. But don't tell anybody, Dad, will you? No, I won't tell anybody. No, don't even tell Dad. No, I won't tell Dad. Don't worry about that. And then 3 minutes later, I was like, Tris, just so you know, she's not drinking because she thinks she might be pregnant. Anyway, do you want my story? And honestly, you will. Hopefully, you'll laugh at this. So, holidays, Jacob, his 8th birthday. So it was our first time away. Went to Spain. Now you've met Aloy, Spanish Aloy, who was at our wedding. Yeah, really nice guy. We went to visit him and Clara, his wife, or his then fiancée, girlfriend. Anyway, so we stayed in a lovely hotel. It's his 8th birthday, and it was like we were going to the Felix, which is the equivalent of Universal kind of park the next day.
Yep.
Aloy was going to drive me and the boys there. Tris was getting the train with Clara because it was just an easier way to do it. So went to breakfast, and we Have you seen Jacob at a buffet?
No, I'm reflecting forwards. I know how this ends. Keep going.
Anyway, so Jacob decides that it's Spanish ham and pineapple day. Spanish. Oh, sorry. I'm going to have to say that again. Spanish ham and pineapple day. So that is his day to, just to consume as much Spanish ham and pineapple as he can. Jacob is an eater. He loves to eat. And yeah, so we get in the car and we travel out of Madrid city centre. We get to I've not even told the story yet. And you're already.
I think my imagination is worse than that.
I think it is. I'm crying. I am as well from laughter. So anyway, we get just round the corner from the park, and it's like, I'm fabulous. This is really going well. Oh, if only you could see, dear listener, if you're still listening by this point. We just were like 4 cars between us and the kind of gate where you get your tickets and what have you, and then you go through the car park. And all of a sudden, I feel sick. Okay.
Wet man.
Anyway, after he said that, 3 seconds later, puts his hand up to his face.
Oh.
Projectile vomits everywhere, but it doesn't go forward, obviously. It goes sideways. So Fraser and Brandon were sat next to him, covered in pineapple. Covered in pineapple and Spanish ham. Oh dear. Anyway, we pull over. I, by chance, had a pair of shorts on that I'd clearly walked a dog in, so I had 2 poo bags in there. So I was scooping pineapple and Spanish ham out of the footwell of the car. Anyway, so we ended up having a lovely day after that. Obviously, the boys had to get changed. As Jacob, you've really not got a good stomach, have you? However, what we didn't think about was where we'd parked in the Spanish heat.
Oh.
So anyway, Eloy eventually sold the car, but when he did, it still stunk of pineapple about 3 years later.
Oh, you awful human.
And that is a true story.
Oh.
I'll get Jacob to tell you next time.
No, please, I beg you don't. Oh, honestly, I'm lathered now.
Oh, that was quite hard to tell, actually. I didn't think you would take it as bad as that, but clearly it was horrendous, so I apologise.
Oh. I'm going to have to end the podcast now.
I've actually cut out a lot of the story as well, because I just realised your reaction. I was like, okay, I have to cut out some of that.
That's one for the live show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I'll bring a sick bag for the tour. I'll tell that story every night until you stop being sick. Anyway,
yeah,
that's holiday
tour.
Yeah.
Well, on that bombshell, Hello, Scott. The pleasure was all yours.
And yeah, it certainly was.
Yeah. Bon Jovi.
Pineapple and Spanish.
You filthy, filthy man.
Oh, dear. You actually went, so why at one point? I thought, okay, I can't keep this going.
Honestly.
Oh, dear me.
Oh, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go and lie down in a dark room and take some travel sickness pills.
You should have them dots behind your ears. Whatever they are. I don't know.
Oh, honestly. I can't. Honestly, I've got such a gag reflex. If my children used to vomit, my vomit would hit the floor before theirs. Honestly, I was... And
You've not got the
things
best
I've
stomach,
seen.
have you?
No, the only way I can cope is if I have to say in my head, it's just the contents of the stomach. It's just the contents of the stomach, and I can do it. But yeah. Well, anyway, on that bombshell, I am going.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll get my people to talk to your people, and I'll fax you a memo.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Anchovy.